Today, we are looking at a surprising but important shift in U.S. foreign policy, as Donald Trump signals that he wants to avoid confrontation in Asia, maintain the U.S.-Japan alliance, and also seek a cooperative relationship with China. It's a statement that has caught the attention of governments and analysts around the world because it marks a noticeable change from the strong and sometimes confrontational tone that Trump has often used when discussing China in particular. So what exactly does this new message mean, and why is it significant? Let's break it down and look at the broader strategic picture. When Trump says he wants to maintain the alliance with Japan, he is reinforcing one of the most important pillars of U.S. policy in Asia. The U.S.-Japan alliance has been central to the region's security architecture for decades, and every American president, regardless of political ideology, has treated it as a top priority. By clearly stating that he will uphold this alliance, Trump is sending a signal that the United States will remain committed to its long-standing partnerships and that Japan can continue to rely on American military and diplomatic support. At a time when tensions in the region have been rising, this reassurance matters. But the second part of Trump's message is even more interesting. He is distancing himself from confrontation and emphasizing cooperation with China. This is a notable adjustment because in the past, Trump has frequently taken a hard line on China, especially regarding trade, technology, and military activities in the Asia-Pacific. Now, however, he is presenting a more balanced tone, suggesting that the United States does not need to choose conflict and that constructive engagement with China is both possible and desirable. This shift may reflect changes in global strategy, domestic political calculations, or simply a reassessment of what is most practical in the current geopolitical environment. For China, this message will almost certainly be welcomed. Beijing has long argued that cooperation is better than confrontation, and that major powers should avoid destabilizing the region. Hearing Trump adopt language that aligns more closely with this viewpoint will be interpreted as a positive sign. It doesn't mean all disagreements will disappear, but it signals that both sides may be willing to explore a more stable and predictable relationship. In international politics, even small shifts in tone can open the door to meaningful diplomatic movement. Japan, on the other hand, will be carefully observing how this balance plays out. While the reassurance of the U.S.-Japan alliance is strong, Tokyo also knows that U.S. engagement with China can sometimes shift regional dynamics. Tokyo's strategy relies on a combination of deterrence and diplomacy, and it needs the United States to maintain a firm but stable approach toward Beijing. As long as the U.S. continues to support Japan and recognize its strategic importance, Tokyo is likely to welcome reduced tensions as long as its own security environment remains safeguarded. So why would Trump adopt this more cooperative messaging at this moment? One possibility is that the global landscape has changed significantly, and conflict-oriented rhetoric no longer serves America's interests as effectively as before. The world today is dealing with economic challenges, supply chain issues, and shifting alliances, and in such an environment, stability becomes especially valuable. Another possibility is that Trump is trying to position himself as a pragmatic leader capable of recalibrating strategy based on changing circumstances. International audiences often pay close attention to these shifts, interpreting them as indicators of future policy direction. There is also a broader strategic angle here. By maintaining a strong alliance with Japan while pursuing cooperation with China, the United States could be attempting to balance the two largest powers in Asia without committing fully to confrontation or accommodation. This kind of balancing act has long been a feature of U.S. strategy in the region, but Trump's new tone brings it back into focus in a more visible way. If executed carefully, it could reduce the risk of escalation while preserving U.S. influence. If handled poorly, however, it could create uncertainty among allies. The key will be consistency and clarity.
One thing that is clear is that the world is watching. Japan will want reassurance that the U.S. remains a reliable partner. China will test whether Washington's cooperative tone translates into actual policy changes. Other countries in Asia, including South Korea, Australia, and those in Southeast Asia, will be trying to understand how this shift affects their own positions. In geopolitics, even a simple change in language can create ripple effects, influencing economic decisions, military planning, and diplomatic engagement. In the end, Trump's statement is more than just a headline. It is a window into the evolving reality of global politics and the delicate balance that major powers must navigate. Maintaining alliances while pursuing cooperation sounds straightforward, but in practice it requires careful strategy, steady leadership, and thoughtful communication. Whether this new tone leads to lasting stability or becomes just another momentary shift will depend on what comes next and how each country responds. But for now, what we can say is that this message marks an important moment in U.S.-Asia policy, a moment that signals a preference for stability over confrontation, partnership over isolation, and diplomacy over escalation. And in a world that is increasingly uncertain, even a small step toward balance can carry significant weight.